for tuning in to tonight's presentation of A Christmas Carol. But first, a few words from our sponsors. Are you bored this Christmas season? Are the holidays just aren't what they used to be? Then come on down to the North Pole Boutique for all of your Santa-inspired outfits, from their new red jolly jackets to their littlest elf earrings. The North Pole Boutique on the corner of North Avenue and Pole Street. Nothing beats the sound of rain on the windows as you cuddle next to a warm fire. The only thing that could make it better would be a nice warm cup of cocoa. Jefferson's Pure Natural Cocoa comes packaged with real chocolate and no artificial sweeteners for that rich, smooth cocoa taste. Make those cold nights even better with Jefferson Cocoa. Welcome one and all to tonight's production of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, presented by Wellspring Productions. Wellspring Productions is the new and upcoming production company for all your needs, whether on the stage or behind your camera. Wellspring, a production company for the novice and professional. Tonight's show features a lovely cast and crew to bring the magic straight to you, featuring Scott Luttrell, Christopher Corder, David Roque, Alex Huey, Olivia Pack, and Brittany Anderson-Severi. And your narrators, Mitch Turner and Josh Anderson-Severi. With on Foley, Chloe DeLuca, and Jasmine Severi. And our director, Chris Martinez. Tonight's show will be recorded, so please keep all noise to a minimum and please don't interact with the actors. So let's dive in to Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Marley was dead, to begin with.
There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman,
The clerk,
the undertaker,
and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it.
and Scrooge's name was as good as anything upon which he chose to put his hand to.
Old Marley was as dead as a doornail.
Mind, I don't mean to say that I know, of my own knowledge, what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined, myself, to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade.
But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail.
Scrooge knew he was dead?
Of course he did. How could it be otherwise?
Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor,
His sole administrator,
his sole friend.
and sole mourner.
There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story we are going to relate.
Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door.
Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. But he answered to both names.
It was all the same to him.
Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching,
Grasping, scraping,
clutching, covetous old sinner.
hard and sharp as flint.
Secret, self-contained, and solitary as an oyster.
The cold within him froze his old features. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. No warmth could warm, nor wintry weather chill him. Nobody ever stopped him in the streets to say,
My dear Scrooge, how are you?
no beggars implored him to bestow a passing trifle.
No children asked what it was o'clock. But what did Scrooge care?
It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance.
Of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal. The city clocks had just only gone 3, but it was quite dark already. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond was copying letters.
Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so as surely as the clerk came in with the shovel...
What do you think you're doing?
It's very cold, Mr. Scrooge, and one piece of coal
Would be the cause of your termination.
Yes, sir.
Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!
It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach.
Humbug!
Christmas a humbug? You don't mean that?
I do. Merry Christmas. What reason do you have to be merry? You're poor enough.
What reason have you to be dismal? You're rich enough.
Ah, humbug.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? Time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled with his own pudding and with a stake of holly through his heart.
Uncle!
Nephew! Keep Christmas your own way and let me keep it mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Leave me alone then! Much good has it ever done you?
There are many things by which have been good to me, by which I have not profited, Christmas among them. But I have always thought of Christmas as a good time, a kind, charitable, forgivable, pleasant time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem to open up their shut-up hearts freely to one another. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good, and so I say, God bless it.
Oh, you're quite a powerful speaker, sir. It's a wonder you don't go into Parliament.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
I'll see you in hell first.
But why?
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love.
Because you fell in love. A more ridiculous drivel than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon.
Nay, Uncle, but you never came to see me before I got married. Why give it as a reason for not coming now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We've never had any quarrel to which I've been a party. But I've made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I will keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
His nephew left the room without an angry word. He stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk and return them cordially.
In letting Scrooge's nephew out, he had let two other people in. They were portly gentlemen,
Pleasant to behold.
and now stood in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands and bowed to him.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Do I have the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead 7 years. He died 7 years ago this very night.
We have no doubt that his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner.
Yes. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, we should make some slight provision for the poor and the destitute, who suffer greatly at this present time.
Many thousands are in want of common necessities. Many hundreds of thousands of common comforts.
Oh, there are no prisons.
Plenty of prisons.
And the union workhouses are still in operation.
They are. Still, I wish I could say that they were not.
I'm glad to hear it.
Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind and body to the multitude, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth.
Yes, we choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices.
What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
Though you wish to remain anonymous.
I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I cannot afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there.
And many would rather die.
If they would rather die, then they had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
But you can help.
It's not my business to help. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentlemen withdrew. The clerk opened the door for the gentlemen, and upon their exit, to the door came about a few carolers with Christmas cheer about them. But at the first sound of
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing
you dismay.
Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action, the singers fled in terror. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted his stool and tacitly admitted the fact to his expectant clerk.
5 o'clock. I suppose you may close for the evening if you must. You want all day off tomorrow, I suppose.
If quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. You don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work?
It's only once a year, Mr. Scrooge.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pockets every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day, be here all the earlier the next morning.
Yes, Mr. Scrooge, of course, Mr. Scrooge. Merry
Humbug!
Scrooge leapt with a growl as the clerk hurried out.
Scrooge lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms. It was old now, dreary enough, but nobody lived in it but Scrooge.
Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in the city of London. And then let any man explain to me,
If he can.
how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker,
Without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but
Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless.
As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again.
To say that he was not startled would be untrue. He did pause with a moment's irresolution before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it first. He did walk through his rooms to see that all was right.
Nobody under the table,
Nobody under the sofa,
nobody under the bed,
nobody in the closet.
nobody in his dressing gown.
Quite satisfied, he closed his bedroom door and double-locked himself in.
Which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel.
His glance happened to rest upon a bell.
A disused bell that hung in the room and communicated, for some purpose now forgotten, with a chamber in the highest story of the building.
It was with great astonishment and an inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing.
Humbug!
It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house.
This might have lasted half a minute or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun. Together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain.
The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards the door.
It's humbug still. I won't believe it.
His color changed, though, when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his very eyes. The same face.
The very same.
Marley's ghost!
The chain he drew was clasped around his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail. His body was transparent.
Ebenezer Scrooge!
Humbug! Humbug, I say! Humbug! What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Jacob?
You don't believe in me?
I don't.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach. It makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef. Yes, a crumb of cheese. A fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy to you than grave. Whatever you are.
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do. I must. But why do spirits walk the earth and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow man. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so in death.
Why do you wear chains?
I wear the chain I forged in life. I forged it link by link and yard by yard and put it on of my own free will. Yours was as full and heavy 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since.
Jacob, speak comfort to me.
I have none to give. I cannot rest, I cannot stay. In life, my spirit never roamed beyond the narrow limits of a money-changing hole. And weary journeys lie before me.
7 years dead and traveling all this time.
The whole time, no rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse.
You may have covered a great quantity of ground in 7 years.
Captive bound and double chained, not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life opportunity missed. Yet such was I.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Hear me. My time is nearly gone.
I will, but don't be hard upon me.
I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate.
Yes, you were always a good friend to me.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance and hope you spoke of, Jacob?
It is.
I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and get it over with, Jacob?
Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look, for your own sake, that you remember what has passed between us!
The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little. Scrooge became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge, floated out upon the dark night.
Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity. The air was filled with phantoms. Every one of them wore chains like Molly's ghost. The misery with them all was clearly
houses faded together into mist, and the night became as it had been when Scrooge walked home. Scrooge closed the window. He tried to say,
Mug, but stopped at the first syllable, and being much in need of repose, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant.
When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to piece together the darkness when the chimes of a neighboring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour.
To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, and stopped.
12!
It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have gotten into the works. 12!
It is impossible that I've slept through a whole day and far into another night. It's impossible. If anything's happened to the sun, and that it's 12 at noon, must have been a dream. But was it a dream? Or not?
Scrooge lay in this state until the chimes had gone 3 quarters more, when he remembered, on a sudden, that the ghost had warned him of visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past. At length, it broke upon his listening ear.
1/4 past. 1/2 past. 1/4 to it. The hour itself. Then nothing else.
He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a deep,
Dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand.
It was a strange figure, like a child.
Yet not so like a child as like an old man. Its hair was white as if with age.
And yet the face had not a wrinkle in it.
The figure wore a tunic of the purest white, fluctuating in its distinctness.
Being now a thing with 1 arm, now with 1 leg.
Now a head without a body, now itself again.
But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprang a bright, clear jet of light, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past.
No, your past.
Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in her cap, and begged her to be covered.
What? Would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? It is not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap, and forced me through trains of years to write low upon my brow.
What business brought you here?
Your welfare,
A single night of unbroken rest would have done well for that.
your reclamation, then. Rise and walk with me.
I'm mortal and liable to fall.
There put a touch of my hand there, and you shall be upheld in more than this.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road, with fields on either hand.
The darkness and the mist had vanished, for it was a clear, cold winter day, with snow upon the ground.
Good heavens! I was bred in this place. I was a boy here.
Your lip is trembling, and what is that upon your cheek?
I don't know. I must have a speck of something in my eye is all. Lead on, spirit.
So you recollect the way?
Remember it? I can walk it blindfolded.
Strange to have forgotten it for so many years. Let us go on.
They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance.
These are but the shadows of the things that have been. They have no consciousness of us.
They walked along and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick. It was a large house.
but one of broken fortunes, poorly furnished, cold, and vast. A door at the back of the house opened before them, disclosing a lonely boy reading near a feeble fire.
The school is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still.
It is me when I was a boy.
God rest ye merry gentlemen.
Poor boy. I wish, but it's too late now.
What is the matter?
Nothing. There was a boy singing Christmas carol at my door last night. I should have liked to given him something. That's all.
Let us see another Christmas.
Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The door opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in. She threw her arms about his neck and kissed him often.
Dear, dear brother, I have come to bring you home, dear brother, to bring you home, home, home.
Home, little Van.
Yes, home for good and all, home forever and ever. Father's so much kinder than he used to be, that home is like heaven. He spoke to me so gently one dear night that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said yes, you should, and he sent me in a coach to bring you, and you are to be a man and to never come back here. But first, we are to be together all Christmas long and have the merriest time in all the world.
You're quite the woman, little Van.
She stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him in her childish eagerness towards the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her.
Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered, but she had a large heart.
Yes, she had, you're right. I will not gainsay in spirit, God forbid.
She died a woman and had, as I think, children.
One child.
True, your nephew.
Yes.
Come, we have yet more to see.
Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door.
Do you know this place?
Know it? I was apprenticed here.
They went inside, at sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk.
If he had been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling.
Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again.
You ho there, Ebenezer! Dick!
Dick Wilkins. Bless me, yes, there he is. We were inseparable, we were.
How are the day's tasks proceeding?
All completed, sir.
All? Including the inventory of the day's last shipment?
Yes, sir. We doubled our effort on it.
Well, then it's time for your next task.
But, sir, the time?
And what time is it now?
5 o'clock on Christmas Eve, sir.
Christmas Eve, I believe you are correct. Mr. Scrooge, no more work tonight then. Here's your task. Let's have lots of room here. Clear away, my lads, before a man can say, Jack Robinson.
Clear away! There was nothing they wouldn't or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on.
It was done in a minute, and the warehouse was as snug and as bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night.
In came a fiddler and went up to the lofty desk. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, now accompanied by family and friends.
In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In they all came, one after another, anyhow and everyhow. Finally, Mr. Fezziwig took the stage.
Welcome to all, and a very Merry Christmas. Are the dancers ready? Oh, well then, let the music begin.
Away they all went, 20 couples at once, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping.
But if they had been twice as many,
4 times.
old Fezziwig would have been a match for them.
And so would Miss Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term.
Advance and retire, both hands to your partner,
Bow and curtsy, corkscrew.
thread the needle, and back again to your place.
You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would become of them all next.
There were forfeits and more dances.
And there was cake and plenty of food and drink.
Old Scrooge acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, and with his former self, he remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation.
When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on each side of the door, and shaking hands with every person as they went out, wished them a
Merry Christmas!
Well done indeed! Merry Christmas, everyone!
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude.
Small?
Why is it not? Ye spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves such praise?
It isn't that. It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add them up. But what then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune.
What is the matter?
Nothing in particular.
Something, I think.
No, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clock just now, that's all.
My time grows short. Quick!
Again, Scrooge saw himself. He was now a man in the prime of life. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye which showed the passion that had taken root.
He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears.
It matters little. To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me. And if it can cheer and comfort you in time, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve.
What idol has displaced you?
A golden one.
This is the fault of the world. There's nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there's nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth.
You fear the world too much, Ebenezer. All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen all your other hopes and dreams fade away until the master passion, gain, has consumed you, have I not?
What then? Even if I've grown so much wiser, what then? My feelings towards you have not changed. Have they?
We fell in love when we were both young and poor and content to be so, until, in good season, we could improve our worldly fortune by our patience. You are changed. When we met, you were another man.
I was a boy.
Your own feelings tell you that you are not what you are. I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of it, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and can release you.
Have I ever sought release?
In words? No, never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in everything that made my love of any worth of value in your sight. If this had never been between us, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? No.
You think not?
I would gladly think otherwise if I could. Heaven knows. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can I even believe that you would choose a poor girl? You who in your very confidence with her weigh everything by gain. Or choosing her, do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do. And I release you with a full heart for the love of whom you once were. You may. The memory of our time together half makes me hope you will, have pain in this. A very, very brief time, and you will dismiss me altogether as an unprofitable dream from which you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen.
Spirit, show me no more, take me home. Why do you delight to torture me?
I told you that these were shadows of things that have been, that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Leave me! Take me back! Haunt me no longer!
Scrooge observed that the spirit's light was burning high and bright.
And dimly connecting that with its influence over him, he seized the extinguisher cap the spirit held under its arm and pressed it down upon its head.
The spirit, with no visible resistance on its own part, dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form.
But though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground.
He was conscious of being overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and, further, of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze, and had barely time to reel to bed, before he sank into a heavy sleep.
You are listening to Wellspring Productions, A Christmas Carol. We'll be right back after these messages. When the Halloween season comes and you want to impress the neighbors, there's only one place to call: Straight to Hail Productions. Straight to Hail Productions is a local company that specializes in mechanical props and set design. Made famous by their front-of-house Halloween days, Straight to Hail also lays claim to Halloween at the famous Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, as well as both the Halloween and now Christmas events for the city of Eastville, coming soon. Not just for the holiday seasons, call for all your theater needs as well. That's Straight to Hail. No, not that one. STRAITEHALE. Straight to Hail. There seems to be a sickness among the youth of today. Experts claim that symptoms include incessant singing, dancing, and long, never-ending monologues. If your child has any or all of these symptoms, please call CAT. That is the Christian Arts Theater, for when your child has caught the acting bug. Visit them this holiday season for their radio production, as well as their production of Lost Girl, where you can continue the story of Peter Pan and Wendy. CAT Theater of Corona puts on a professional theater for both the young and old. Christian Arts Theater. We'll now be holding a brief intermission.
Tonight's presentation of the Charles Dickens holiday classic, A Christmas Carol, is presented by Boca Floorshine. When you have ghost visitors in the middle of the night and want to make sure your floors are spotless, remember Boca. Do you feel like you've been visited by the ghosts of bad meals past? Try Larson's Liver Oil Pills. Larson's has all the vital and essential vitamins you need to overcome that stubborn indigestion. Now in pill form, that means 50% less liver aftertaste. Look for Larson's at your local pharmacy. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy Act 2 of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Awaking in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore, and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1.
Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing, and consequently, when the bell struck 1, and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling.
5 minutes.
10 minutes.
A quarter of an hour went by, yet nothing came, save for the very core and center of a blaze of ruddy light which streamed upon his bed.
At last, he began to think that the source and the secret of this ghostly light might be in the adjoining room.
This idea, taking full possession of his mind, he got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to peep round the door.
Scrooge, come in!
There, in easy state, upon this couch sat a jolly giant, glorious to see. It was clothed in one simple deep green robe, bordered with white fur, and on its head it wore no other covering than a holly wreath, set here and there with shining icicles.
Its dark brown curls were long and free as its genial face, its sparkling eye, its open hand, its cheery voice, its unconstrained demeanor, and its joyful air.
Ebenezer Scrooge, come here and know me better, man.
Who are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the likes of me before.
Never.
Have never walked forth with any of the younger members of my family, meaning, for I am very young, my elder brothers born in these later years?
I don't think I have. Have you many brothers, Spirit?
More than 1,800.
I think it's a tremendous family to provide for, Spirit. Lead me where you will. I learned a great lesson last night that is working on me now. Tonight, if you have anything to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. All vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning.
The sky was gloomy. There was nothing very cheerful in the climate or the town.
And yet, the people who were shoveling away on the housetops were jovial and full of glee. Customers at the nearby grocers were all so hurried and so eager in the hopeful promise of the day
That they tumbled up against each other at the door, crashing their wicker baskets wildly, and committed hundreds of the like mistakes.
in the best humor possible.
Suddenly, and without warning, 2 such fellows rounded the street corner where Scrooge and the Spirit stood, bounding into each other and sending their respective purchases tumbling to the ground.
Perhaps it was the pleasure the good Spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature, and his sympathy with all poor men, that led them straight to the home of Scrooge's claws.
For there he went, and on the threshold of the door the Spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinklings of his torch. Mrs. Cratchit,
Bob Cratchit's wife,
dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, merrily hustled back and forth between the stove and the dining table.
Smooth that corner, Belinda.
Yes, Mum.
Peter.
I'm mashing as fast as I can.
Good, Peter, good. Now, whatever has happened to your father and your brother Tiny Tim? And Martha's never been this late before.
Here's Martha, Mother.
Martha,
Smell the goose, Martha.
why, bless my heart alive, my dear, how late you are.
We had a deal of work to finish up last night and had to clear away this morning, Mother.
Well, never mind so long as you are here. Set yourself beside the fire.
Father's coming. Hide, Martha, hide.
So Martha hid herself, and in came Bob with his threadbare clothes donned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder.
Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
Hello, my dears.
Hello, Robert.
Why, where's Martha?
Not coming.
Not coming? Not coming on Christmas Day?
Here I am, Father.
Martha, why are you... my dear.
And how did little Tim behave?
Oh, as good as gold and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you've ever heard. Coming home, he told me that he hoped that people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
He's a remarkable child, Robert.
Yes, and he's growing strong and hearty.
Master Peter went to fetch the goose, with which he soon returned in high procession.
Such a bustle ensued that you might have thought a goose the rarest of all birds.
A feathered phenomenon.
Time to
Finally,
eat.
time. Goose.
What about my potatoes?
We have potatoes all the time.
Ah, but these are special potatoes, love. Blessed by Father Christmas himself.
Really?
Really? I don't believe it. I am sure they don't taste any different than any others.
Not to you!
Why would that be?
Because they are flavored with the milk of human kindness, a flavor completely unknown to your palate. Bow your heads, my dears. Lord, we thank you for this bounty that you have blessed us with.
Bounty? Bounty, he's delusional.
It must be the effect of the prolonged exposure to the cold in the workplace. We thank you for the bounty of fellowship that you have seen fit to bestow upon us. Thank you for the gift of family. Amen.
Amen.
At last, the dishes were set on, and grace was said.
It was succeeded by a breathless pause as Mrs. Cratchit prepared to plunge the carving knife into the goose.
When she did, one murmur of delight arose all round the table.
I don't believe there ever was such a goose cooked.
The children seem to agree.
Well, perhaps it's time to seek proof in the, well.
Right you are, my love, right you are. As long as it's ready.
Mrs. Cratchit left the room alone, too nervous to bear witness, to take the pudding up and bring it in.
Suppose it should not be done enough.
Oh, suppose it should break in the turning out.
Suppose somebody should have got over the wall of the backyard and stolen it while they were merry with the goose.
Now, my dear ones, we're in for such a holiday treat. Prepare yourselves. Make ready.
In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered
Flushed but smiling proudly.
with the pudding.
Pudding!
Oh, a wonderful pudding.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Mother.
This, my dear, is the greatest achievement by you since our marriage.
Certainly, this pudding is a blessing.
Indeed it is. A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in a poor chimney corner and a crutch without an owner. Carefully preserved, but if these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
Oh, no, kind spirit, no, say he will be saved.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race shall find him here. What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
No!
Man, if man you be in heart, repent your wicked words until you know what the surplus is. Will you decide what men shall live, what men shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child. Mr. Scrooge, I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
The founder of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
My dear, the children, Christmas Day.
It should be Christmas Day, when one is forced to drink the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow.
My dear, Christmas Day!
I'll drink his health for the days, and for your sake, but not for his. Long life to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt.
The children drank the toast after her. It was the first of their proceedings which had no heartiness in it.
After it had passed away, they were 10 times merrier than before.
No one's ever toasted me before.
I can't remember anyone being saluted with such enthusiasm. I have an announcement, my dears.
What is it, Robert?
I believe I have found a position for Peter.
Master Peter.
It would bring in a full 5 and 6 weekly.
Master Peter indeed.
I believe I shall begin to invest.
Well, I'll tell you what I shall do immediately. Sleep in tomorrow.
That is certainly a holiday blessing we can all enjoy.
Yes, come. It's nearly time to carol.
They're not a very handsome family.
But they are contented with the time that they have together. Be careful where you store up your treasures.
They were not a handsome family. They were not well dressed. Their clothes were scanty.
But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time.
And the spirit ushered Scrooge out the door. Scrooge kept his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim until the last.
It was a great surprise to Scrooge to hear a hearty laugh. It was a much greater surprise to hear it as his own nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, gleaming room, with the spirit standing smiling by his side, and looking at that same nephew with approving affability.
There is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. When Scrooge's nephew laughed this way, holding his sides, rolling his head, and twisting his face into the most extravagant contortions, Scrooge's niece,
By marriage,
laughed as heartily as he, and their assembled friends roared out lustily.
He said that Christmas was a humbug. Oh, he believed it too.
More shame for him, friend.
Oh, he's a comic old fellow, and not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offences carry their own punishments, and I have nothing to say against him.
I'm sure he's very rich, Fred. At least you always tell me so.
What of it, my dear? His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it. He doesn't make himself or us comfortable with it.
I feel quite comfortable in my home.
Oh, is that with the 1 lump of coal, or when you splurge and actually add a second to the fire?
I have no patience with him.
I can't believe anyone would.
Thank you, sister.
I have. I am sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers by his ill whims, himself always.
Ah, too much eggnog, Fred.
Yeah, he takes it into his head to dislike us and won't come dine with us. What's the consequence? Well, he don't lose much of a dinner.
Indeed. I think he loses a very good dinner.
Better than he deserves.
I deserve quite a good meal.
Oh, such as gruel, morning, noon, and night? Yes, your menu is indeed impressive.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, because I have in great faith in these young housekeepers. What do you say, Topper?
Yes, why don't you enlighten us?
A bachelor is a wretched outcast, with no right to express an opinion on the subject.
Perhaps you could still venture.
Do go on, Fred. Ridiculous fellow. He never finishes what he begins to say.
I was only going to say that I think the consequences of his disliking us is that he loses some pleasant moments, which could do him no harm.
Then just leave him be, old chap.
I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not. I pity him. He may rail at Christmas till he dies, but he can't help thinking better of it if I keep visiting him, year after year, and saying, "Uncle Scrooge, how are you?" If it only puts him into the vein to leave his poor clerk £50, that's something. And I think I shook him yesterday. Games. Who's up for some blind man's buff?
Ah, this is one of my favorites.
Oh, yes. It's so much easier to fleece someone if they can't see what's happening.
Here, Fred, I'll be it.
He's on your scent, sister. Run!
Aha, my prize.
Paid in full.
Ow!
That's Hopper. He's helpless. He's going about it all wrong.
Sage wisdom from the King of Hearts, eh? Time to move on.
Let's try a new game.
Yeah, new game? Did you hear that, Spirit? Please, just 1/2 hour more.
No, finally! Something that warms your cold exterior. How could I refuse?
This is called Yes and No.
No more blind man's buff?
No.
The mob has spoken.
I suppose.
That's the spirit. Now, I will think of something, and you will all have to guess what it is.
This should be exceedingly simple.
So you think, my love. But here's the catch. No matter the question, I may only answer by saying yes or no. Shall we? Very well. I am thinking of an animal.
Dead.
No.
So it's alive.
Yes.
Is it an agreeable animal?
No.
Is it disagreeable?
It's a good thing he's handsome.
Yes.
Is it savage?
Oh, yes.
Does it grunt and growl?
Yes.
Does it talk?
Yes. Sometimes.
That was cheating.
Yes, in the name of domestic tranquility.
It could be a monkey.
Or a monkey's uncle.
Does it live in London?
Yes.
Does it live in a menagerie?
No.
Not a monkey.
It could be a wild monkey.
Oh, in London?
Is it killed in market?
No.
Is it a horse?
No.
Is it a donkey?
No. Not exactly.
Fowl.
Is it a tiger?
No.
Is it a tiger rug?
It is a live topper.
But is it a rug?
No.
Is it a dog?
No.
Is it a bear?
A cat?
No.
Bear!
A bear?
No.
Ah!
I have found it out. I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is.
What is it?
It's your Uncle Scrooge.
Yes!
That's not a bear, Fred.
And why is that?
You should have answered yes when I asked if it was a bear.
Oh, yeah, yes, truly. He has given us plenty of merriment. It would be ungrateful not to drink to his health. Raise your glasses, my friends, to Uncle Scrooge. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man, whatever he is. He wouldn't take it from me, but he may have it nevertheless. Uncle Scrooge.
Uncle Scrooge!
Uncle Scrooge had imperceptibly become so cheerful and light of heart that he would have pledged the unconscious company in return and thanked them in an inaudible speech if the ghost had given him time. But the whole scene passed off in the breath of the last words spoken by his nephew. And he and the spirit were again upon their travels. It was strange that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older, clearly older. Scrooge had observed this change, but never spoke of it, until, looking at the spirit as they stood together in an open place, he noticed that its hair was gray.
Spirit, a sudden touch of grey. I see in your hair. The spirits, are the lives so short?
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Upon the stroke of midnight. Hark, the time is drawing near.
Forgive me, Spirit, but I see something strange protruding from your robe.
Oh, indeed. Look here.
From the folds of its robe, it brought 2 children.
Wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. They knelt down at its feet and clung upon the outside of its garment. They were a boy and a girl.
Yellow, meager, ragged, scowling, wolfish.
But prostrate too in their humility.
where graceful youth should have filled their features out, and touched them with its freshest tints, a stale and shriveled hand, like that of old age, had pinched and twisted them, and pulled them into shreds.
Spirit, are they yours?
They are man's, and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. This boy is ignorance. This girl is want. Beware them both, and all their degree, but most of all, beware this boy, for on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased.
Have they no refuge or resource?
Are there no prisons?
No!
Are there no workhouses?
No!
Are there no prisons?
Are there no workhouses?
No!
Are there no prisons?
Are there no workhouses?
No! No! No!
As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, Scrooge looked about him for the ghost and saw it not. He remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and, lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded in a deep black garment, humming like a mist along the ground towards him.
The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. Scrooge bent down upon his knee, for in the very air through which this spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. Nothing of it was visible, save one outstretched hand.
But for this, it would have been difficult to separate it from the darkness by which it was surrounded. Its mysterious presence filled Scrooge with a solemn dread.
I'm in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
The spirit answered not, but pointed downward with its hand.
You're about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened but will happen in the time before us. Is that correct, Spirit?
Although well used to ghostly company by this time, Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled before him, and he found that he could hardly stand when he prepared to follow it.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But as I know you, your promise is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear your company and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?
It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them.
Lead on, the night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, Spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them.
But there they were, amongst the merchants who hurried up and down and conversed in groups and looked at their watches and so forth.
Scrooge had seen them often.
No, I don't know much about it either way. I only know that he's dead.
Well, when did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die.
God knows.
What has he done with his money?
No, I haven't heard. Left it to his company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me. That's all I know.
And it's very likely to be a cheap funeral. For upon my life, I don't know of anybody to go to it. Suppose we make up a party and volunteer.
Oh, I don't mind going if lunch is provided, but I must be fed.
I'd offer to go if anybody else will. When I come to think of it, I'm not at all sure that I wasn't his most particular friend. For we used to stop and speak whenever we met.
Spirit, I know these men in this place. It is my accustomed time to be here, yet I see myself not. Why, Spirit?
They left the busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town where Scrooge had never penetrated before, although he recognized its situation and its bad repute. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people half naked and drunken. Life upon the straggling streets reeked with crime, with filth and misery.
Far in this den of infamous resort, there was a low-browed, beetling shop, where iron, Old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were bought. Upon the floor within were piled up heaps of secrets that few would like to scrutinize, hidden in mountains of rusty keys, chains, and unseemly rags. Sitting in among the wares he dealt was a gray-haired rascal, nearly 70 years of age, who smoked his pipe in all the luxury of a calm retirement.
Scrooge and the Phantom came into the presence of this man just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop. But she had scarcely entered when another woman, similarly laden, came in too.
Let the charwoman alone to be the first, the laundress to be the second. Look here, old Joe, give a chance. We haven't all met here without meaning it.
You couldn't have come to a better shop, me dears. Come in, come in. You ain't strangers.
Every man has a right to take care of themselves. He always did.
That's true indeed, no man more so.
Why then, don't stand there staring as if you was afraid. Who's the wiser? We're not going to pick holes in each other's coats, I suppose.
Oh, indeed, we should hope not.
Very well then. That's enough. It's the worse for the loss of a few things like these. No, a dead man, I suppose.
No, indeed.
If he wanted to keep them after he was dead, why wasn't he better in life? If he had been, he'd have had someone to look out for him after his death, instead of them lying there gasping out his last breath alone.
It's the truest words that ever was spoke. It's a judgment on him.
I wish it was a little heavier one. Open me bundle, Joe, and let me know the value of it. I'm not afraid to be the first. We knew it was helping ourselves. It's no sin. Open me bundle, Joe.
Patience, patience, love, patience.
Sheets, towels, a little wearing apparel, 2 old-fashioned teaspoons, a pair of sugar tongs, and a few old boots.
I always give too much to the ladies. It's a weakness of mine, and that's the way I ruin myself. That's your account. If you asked for another penny, I'd repent of being so liberal and knock off half a crown.
Do my bundle now, Joe.
What do you call this? Bed curtains?
Bed curtains.
You don't mean to say that you took them down with him lying there?
Yes, I did. Why not?
You were born to make a fortune, and you'll certainly do it.
Don't drop that oil on them blankets now.
His blankets?
Whose else do you think? He's not likely to take cold without him, I dare say.
Well, I hope he didn't die of anything contagious.
Don't you be afraid of that. I ain't so fond of his wares after he's stuck around if he was. You can look through that shirt till your eyes ache, but you won't find all. It's the best he had. They'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me.
What you call the wasting of it?
Putting it on him to be buried in. Somebody was fool enough to put him on him, but I took it off again. Dressed him in calico, I did.
He frightened everyone away from him when he was alive, to profit us when he was dead.
True, true. Come, me ladies, let's have a pint on the dead.
Steady. I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Let me see some tenderness connected with a death, or this dark scene will be forever present with me.
The ghost conducted him through several streets familiar to his feet, and as they went along, Scrooge looked here and there to find himself, but nowhere was he to be seen.
They entered poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire.
Quiet.
Very quiet.
The noisy Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat listening to Peter, who had engaged in a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in sewing.
But surely they were very quiet.
The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand to her face.
And he took a child and set him in the midst of them.
The colour hurts my eyes.
Mother?
They're better now. They get weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the well. It must be nearest time.
Has to, rather. But I think he's walked a little slower this last evening's, Mother.
I have known him to walk very fast indeed with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Very fast indeed.
And so have I.
And so have I.
Often.
He was very light to carry. And your father loved him so that it was no trouble. No trouble. And there's your father at the door.
Hello, my dears.
Welcome home, Robert.
Look how busy you all have been. You'll be done long before Sunday.
Sunday? You went today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear. I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green the place is.
I'm sure it is, Father.
But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on Sundays. My little child. My little child.
He broke down, all at once. He couldn't help it. When he had thought a little and composed himself, he was reconciled to what had happened.
I saw Mr. Scrooge's nephew on the way home, and he inquired as to why I looked down. And when I told him, he said, "I am heartily sorry for it, Mr. Cratchit." He gave me his card and remarked that if he could be of service to us in any way, to please call upon him.
I'm sure he's a good soul, Robert.
And I shouldn't be at all surprised if he should help to find Peter better employment.
Do you hear that, Peter?
And then Peter will find a sweetheart and set up a home for himself.
Get along with you.
It's just as likely as not. One of these days, though, plenty of time for that, my dear. But however and whenever we part from one another, we shall never forget poor Tiny Tim and this first parting.
Never, Father.
I am happy. I am very happy.
Spirit, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Let me behold what I may be in days to come.
The phantom pointed as before. When they reached an iron gate, Scrooge paused to look round before entering.
A churchyard, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds.
The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one.
Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which if persevered in, they must lead. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me.
The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards the stone, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man who lay upon the bed?
The finger pointed from the grave to him, and back again.
No, spirit! No! No! Spirit, hear me! I'm not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this visitation. Why show me this if I'm past all hope?
For the first time, the hand appeared to shake.
A good spirit! Your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I may change those shadows that you showed me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the the lessons that they teach, or tell me that I may sponge away the writing on that stone!
In his agony, Scrooge cut a spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty, and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed it.
Holding up his hands in a last prayer that had no fate reversed, he thought he saw an operation in the phantom's living breast. It shrunk, collapsed, and finally dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own.
The pen was his own.
The room was his own.
Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in.
Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven in Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees. The bed ends. They're not torn down rings and all. They're here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will. I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. I'm as giddy as a drunken man. A happy new year to all the world!
Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh.
A most illustrious laugh.
The father of a long line of brilliant laughs.
Oh, I don't know what day of the month it is. I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby.
Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head.
Golden sunlight,
Heavenly sky,
sweet fresh air,
merry bells.
glorious.
He called down to a boy in Sunday clothes.
What's today?
Eh?
What's today, my fine fellow?
Today? Why, today's Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day! I haven't missed it! The spirits have done it all in one night, of course! They can do anything they like! Hello, my fine fellow!
Hello.
Do you know the poulterer's shop in the next street?
I should hope I did.
Oh, an intelligent boy! A remarkable boy! Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up in there?
What, the one big as me?
Yeah, what a delightful boy! Yes, my buck!
It's hanging there now.
Oh, go and buy it!
What?
No. I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, that I may give them direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sent it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did.
Somehow.
And went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man.
As he stood there, waiting his arrival, the knocker caught his eye.
I shall love it as long as I live. It's a wonderful knocker. Oh, here's the turkey. Hello, Merry Christmas. Why, it's impossible to carry that thing to Camden Town. You must have a cab.
The chuckle with which he said this,
And the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey,
and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy,
were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down, breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, and Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile.
A Merry Christmas! And to you, a Merry Christmas!
He had not gone far when he beheld the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before. It sent a pain through his heart to think how these old gentlemen would look upon him when they met.
But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it.
My dear sirs, a Merry Christmas to you both.
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that's my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you.
Well, now that you mention it.
What he means...
I know exactly what he means, unfortunately. Please, allow me to ask your pardon. I would like to contribute to your funds. Say...
Bless me!
Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
Oh, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in that, I assure you.
I don't know what to say.
Don't say anything, please. But will you come and see me?
Oh, indeed, we shall.
I'm much obliged to you. And I thank you 50 times. Bless you!
He went to church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro,
And patted children on the head and questioned beggars.
and looked down to the kitchens of houses and up to the windows,
And found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk
that anything.
could give him so much happiness.
In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock.
But he made a dash and did it.
Is your master home, my dear?
Yes, sir.
Where is he, my love?
He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs if you please.
Oh, thank you. He knows me. I'll go in here, my dear. Fred!
Why, bless my soul, who's that?
It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?
Let him in? It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off.
He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. Wonderful party.
Wonderful game.
Wonderful unanimity.
Wonderful happiness.
But he was early at the office next morning.
Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first to catch Bob Cratchit coming in late.
That was the thing he had his heart set upon. And he did it.
Yes, he did. The clock struck 9.
No Bob.
A quarter past.
No Bob.
He was a full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open, that he might see him come in.
His hat was off before he opened the door. His comforter, too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello? What do you mean by coming in here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir.
You are. Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please.
It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
Now, I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand for this kind of thing any longer. And therefore, I'm going to raise your salary.
Mr. Scrooge?
A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, my good fellow, than I've given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family. Now, make up the flyers and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word.
He did it all, and infinitely more.
And to Tiny Tim,
who did not die,
he was a second father,
he became as good a friend,
as good a master,
and as good a man,
as the good old city knew.
And it will always be said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possessed the knowledge.
May that truly be said of us.
And all of us.
And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone. Thank you.
Awesome.
Join us next week for a new That's Our Meemaw, starring Helen DeMoire as America's favorite forgetful octogenarian. The hour finds the family enjoying a day at the zoo, but Meemaw unwittingly mistakes her grandson Jimmy with a gorilla, and hilarity ensues. Join us live next week for Monkey Business during That's Our Meemaw. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's presentation of the Charles Dickens holiday classic, A Christmas Carol.